Welcome back to Everything PR, the podcast dedicated to dissecting the strategy, the struggle, and the success of modern public relations.
And I'm your host, Rafael Portis.
Today, we dive into the ethical balancing act in our field of spin versus transparency. We have a guest. Our guest is Rick Jackson, Chief Communications Officer at Talladega College. Before leading the college's communication and brand strategy, he spent this time before as the public relations manager for the Birmingham Waterworks Board, where he led a major rebrand. Previously, Mr. Jackson was an award-winning journalist and morning news anchor for YATV in Birmingham, earning honors such as the Morrow Award, AP Award, Green Eyeshade Award, and Abbey Award. He began his career as a reporter for WTVA TV in Tupelo, Mississippi, after earning his bachelor's in mass communication from Auburn University. Just a quick note that today's episode is a fantastic interview, but it was recorded over a phone connection. While I did my best in post-production, you might notice that the sound quality is not up to the usual. I sincerely apologize for the audio. Let's get into it. So, Mr. Jackson, coming from a journalism and reporter background, how do you define spin in PR, and when does it cross the ethical line from strategic positioning into misleading?
That's a great question, Ms. Portis. And so, how would I define spin? When you are a journalist, I spent my time as a television journalist. And first of all, let me just say that whether you're on the PR side of it or on the news side of it, transparency and factual information is always very much so important. It's a non-negotiable. And so if you are the one telling the story, for example, um, if there was a big catastrophe that happened, you will say perhaps, uh, the loud noise caused the people to scream and yell and run, um, as opposed to if you're on the other side of it representing the brand, you're not necessarily wanting to be fictional. You want to be factual, but it's a way to spin that, as you say. And so instead of saying that, you know, it was a loud noise that caused people to scream, yell, and run, I'd say perhaps the stir caused quite an excitement. And so it's just a play on words. You can still very much so tell the same story without being fictional or untruthful.
Gotcha. So if the spin is, just calculated to the avoidance of the full truth, I say let's flip the coin and talk about its opposite. So the ideal we should be striving for is the transparency. So what does true transparency look like in communications, especially for a higher education institution like Talladega College, where you're
Oh,
working at?
you have to be transparent, of course, because um, transparency builds trust first and foremost. Um, when you're dealing with a situation like higher education, everything around here is built on truth and trust. When we're talking about accreditation, certain rules that we have to follow, certain guidelines that we have to meet, that's all being transparent. And who wants to send their child to any institution, not knowing if they'll be able to get the full gamut of what's going on with their child, whether it be housing, their education, their well-being. And so, uh, with PR in general, representing any brand, you have to be transparent, and particularly with higher education, because once a person does not trust you, it's hard to really get back on track with that. And so, and once you lose your name, your integrity, and what you stand for, then it's really, really not a good place to be in as a person that represents a brand.
That's a good definition. So like I know with transparency it's not all about telling the good news, but just also being proactive about the challenging news too.
Hmm.
And that builds on, just the trust and reputation and the value of it.
So why is it a better long-term strategy for an organization to prioritize transparency even when the news is unfavorable?
Because you know what, the support is life happens. In life, although you can go on social media and people are going to post all types of accomplishments that they have, or their newest car or house or outfit or cool concert they went to, you rarely see people post the bad, right? But is
Mhm.
that person not being transparent, or are they just telling their story in a positive light? And I think that that's what you have to look at. There's a difference between not telling the truth and telling your truth. But in the midst of everything, transparency has to be first and foremost, because again, when you're not transparent about something, not only could you lose trust, but you can also fall over into being unethical. And that can lead to some type of prosecution, even. It can lead to lawsuits. You hold the organization very liable to a many of things. And so you have to always lead with transparency. A good PR strategy for a long term when you're planning on things like crisis communications, worst case scenario, a good strategy will always leave the organization in good standing. There are some things you're not going to be able to avoid. There are sometimes financial crisis that may happen. There may be an incident that happens on campus to where someone is hurt or killed. Things that are beyond your control, but it's all about a strategy. If you already have a strategy in place, then no matter what the situation is, whether it's favorable or not, you can still come out on top, but you have to be transparent about the situation.
Right, that makes sense. And like you said, in today's age with social media and technology, if you don't tell your story accurately, someone else will, and it
That's
might
right.
outcome and be worse. So I can just
Absolutely.
imagine this commitment to transparency. So we'll dive into the ethical PR and crisis management. So in a high stakes crisis, such as a campus incident or just a legal issue, what is the most critical ethical first step? And furthermore, how can a chief communications officer effectively guide the communications team away from a reactive and damage control or spin doctor approach toward a position of transparency?
Very, very great question. So what I say is you have to meet internally, right? You have to meet internally. You have to make sure that everybody who's a part of this situation on the inside is telling the same story. You know the same talking points. You can be the person that's talking to the media or not, but at least you know the same talking points. You know what is going on, and you have to be real about the situation. You do that by creating a command post, and this is a group of people, whether it be your main spokesperson, your top executives, your security, and any other people that you think are vital into the situation. You meet first, you get on the same page, and then you come together and you craft a good message, a message that will go out to your external people. And depending on the situation, some things needs to be addressed faster than others. But among everything, it's always good to also, if you can, have someone from your legal a part of this command post, because they're going to be the ones to tell you what things to hold you to certain liable or not. Um, but I think that is really important, because it's important to always practice ethics and do things that are ethical first and foremost, because again, that could go a lot of bad ways. So once you get a strong beat, everybody is singing to the same beats internally, then your story externally will be a lot more easy to tell, um, easy for you to be prepared for what comes after that, the public's response to it. And sometimes we can't worry about spinning it so much. Sometimes, even in the worst situations, and you having to deliver the worst news, sometimes just being honest and heartfelt when you're delivering a message, that wins people over. Because if you're trying too hard to quote unquote spin a situation, people can see right through that sometimes, especially if it's not a good spin. And then that makes you also not credible and untrustworthy. And so, among everything else, practice good ethics. Make sure that you're speaking the facts, and then making sure that your entire internal department, you're all on the same page with the same messaging.
Yes, gotcha. And I can imagine, things like that take serious courage and leadership, especially when dealing
Yes,
with, high pressure. So for
absolutely.
practitioners wanting, practical advice about, just setting their boundaries within it, how do PR pros manage client and executive pressures who may explicitly ask for a spin? What advice do you have for presenting ethical guidelines as a non-negotiable professional standards?
Oh, for sure. You just have to say exactly what you just asked in that last part. You have to make it known that among everything else, we must be ethical. And sometimes that may not follow a certain trend or a certain timeline or a certain deadline that your clients would like. Um, the things to remember though is that, of course, your clients are always number one. Whoever you're representing is number one. But two, you as a person, the person who's speaking, the person who's out front, you have a responsibility yourself to yourself, and your reputation is all you have. And so there should never be a point that you are putting your reputation or possibility on the line, of being ruined, tarnished, or sued, just for the sake of a client or representing a client. It has to be known, and you have to realize as the PR pro that these people hired you, or these people ask you to represent. And they're doing it because you have all the skills, that are needed to properly do so. And so it has to be a conversation with the client, the organization, the company, or whomever, that you have to trust me to do my job, because I'm not only going to represent yourself in the best light, but I'm out here representing this brand as well. And so I would not let myself be misrepresented. And sometimes it's just not going to align with what you think, or how you think, or how fast or how slow the process is. Just know that I'm hired here for a reason, and it's a process, and everyone has their job to do. And just, let them allow you to do your job.
All right, that's great advice. That's great advice. And like you
Hmm.
said, just the reputation is about protecting the long-term asset. But
Hmm.
I want to spin back and I want to just hit on your background. Like you mentioned, and people know you were previously news reporter and also was the public relations manager at Birmingham Waterworks.
Hmm.
So, given your experience as an award-winning journalist, do you find that your time in the newsroom has informed your ethical approach to communications now? And if so, how so?
Oh, absolutely. We always were held to the regard of making sure that we report factual news. Now, in the days of now, Raphael, we have social media, we have these bloggers, and everybody wants to be a journalist, right? They all want to be the first one to tell the story, or they want to throw headlines up there so you could click on their story, and it's all like clickbait. Everybody is trying to clickbait because guess what? When you're engaging with their content, they're monetizing that. You're putting money in their pocket. And so everybody wants to throw up this real flashy, crazy headline. But they're not really credible sources. One thing that I know, being the first to report something isn't necessarily the best thing all the time, because I've seen situations to where, uh, very credible news outlets have gotten it wrong. I've seen where very credible news outlets have reported someone had died and they hadn't died, things like that. And that is a really serious issue. It's a very serious issue. And I'm the type of person, although there are a lot of pressure, I do understand there's a lot of pressure on journalists, these days, because you're competing with so many other things, not just the other stations, but now you have to be the person that not only shoot, edit, and do your story on live television, but you also have to put it on the website. You have to put it on social media and go forth before so. And um, So I get it. However, it is so important that you tell the facts. And sometimes that means slowing down a bit to make sure you do so. That same advice works here in what I'm doing now, past the news business in the world of public relations and communications, PR. Um, that is very, very important to make sure that we're presenting the truth in what we do, making sure that we're being very, very much so ethical with how we respond, how we represent an organization or company, um, because at the end of the day, you have to be the professional that tells the correct story of your brand, and nobody can tell your story like you. So it's very important to make sure you're doing it right.
Right, right. And that goes along with just, like you said, just fact checking and, just fact checking and not, I guess you could say, rushing through and, kind of
Yes,
take your time in a way. And that'll definitely bring credibility. I got you on that.
absolutely. Absolutely.
So before we wrap up, let's end with one final powerful takeaway. Just the final thoughts on ethics. What's the one guiding principle you rely on daily when making communication decisions?
You know, I I would like to. I'll just tell you my motto that I live by, and I came up with this years ago, and I live by it daily. And it's very appropriate to what you're saying now. And that motto is, it's not my job to impress you, but to leave an impression on you. And that means a gamut of things. That to me means whatever situation you're placed in, whatever tight deadline, and I get it, this business could get hectic with deadlines and pressure and things of that sort all the time. However, you have to know that you're not necessarily there to impress people. You want to leave an impression that you did the job correctly. You did the job to the best of your ability, and you did the job that you were proud of, that you can walk away and be proud of. Not that everybody else can necessarily. And so, um, I think that you have to make sure that you are always putting your best foot forward. You're always taking your time to make the right decisions. If you question it, there's something wrong. Make sure that you double checking and get the opinion of others. And most importantly, make sure that you're clear and concise with everything that you do and continue to just build on that. Rome wasn't built in a day. You're not going to be the best PR professional in one day. And that's the beauty of it. To just know that every day that passes, you're going to meet someone that you learn from. You're going to encounter a situation that you grow from. And those are the things that build you into being a real PR pro. So most importantly, I would just say in everything you do, still remain true to yourself.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Well, that wraps it up. Thank you, Mr. Jackson, for walking us through the high stakes world of communication ethics.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me, Raphael.
No problem.
This wraps up This is Everything PR. Thank you again, Mr. Jackson, and thank you all to our listeners for tuning in the show. Remember, choose truth over spin.